Well, it's fantastic to be here in the Colorado Springs Diocese to launch the first diocesan string of events for the Messenger Eagle Tour. We wanted to put together spiritual events that would engage people to hopefully rise them up and find that inner messenger eagle within them. I'm a degreed finance and accounting guy, and so how did I wind up becoming a director of a film? If that's not providence, I don't know. But stumbling along in my career as a guy heading up an advertising agency and doing some directing and producing and having completed a film in 2004, I was on a faith journey myself that I started back in 2002. Late Lent of 2002 when I started going to Mass every day. My youngest, Brian, is autistic, and in a purely selfish pursuit and selfish design, wanted to start going to Mass, and I was going to demand that God tell me, why us? Why him? So, started this journey and started going to Mass every day, and my eyes, my ears, and my heart were opened. And this opportunity came down. A fan of the previous movie I had made on Ronald Reagan, Steve McAvity, had contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested in making a movie on Our Lady of Guadalupe. And 2 years in, what a great, of all the things that could happen, it was a dream come true. To be able to jump on a story like this and be able to tell it. Little did I know how rich it was, because at the very beginning I was guilty, as 98, 99% of the people are, thinking it's a Mexican thing. It's not a Mexican thing. She's the patroness of the Americas. She's the patroness of life. She's here for us all. And the fact that there are ties going all the way back to Luke, the gospel writer, through Spain, into Mexico, into California with Padre Serra and the missions, who he was inspired by Our Lady of Guadalupe. You kind of have this Camino Guadalupe, a road of Guadalupe, that she's wrapping around us and hugging us and trying to bring us all back in. Our faith is authentic and historic, and we need to get back to our authenticity of faith. One of the great things about sharing the Messenger Eagle Tour with the people in Colorado Springs is that we are hearkening back to the beginning.
It is a remarkable film because it tells the story really of our Blessed Mother from the time of the Annunciation throughout Christian history, but culminating in her appearance to Juan Diego as under the title of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So in many ways, there's what the heart of the movie is, the appearance and the message of Our Lady of Guadalupe, but it really tells us who Mary is.
Remember that song years ago, Don't Worry, Be Happy? That's basically it. She, like a mother, I remember when I was punched in the nose when I was in school, and I went back to my mother at lunchtime, and everything was okay. This is what Our Lady is. She is our mother. That's the message.
The apparitions themselves are moments for me to reflect on and the profoundness of what was delivered at that time to humanity through the very simple event there. And I think that's the part that I think has touched me the most in that film.
The people that have attended the film and the event have been very receptive, very excited that there's a tool, because with the film we also have study guides that hopefully will engage people. At the end of the study guide, we're asking people to consecrate themselves to the Virgin Mary and set off into a plan of action for the new evangelization.
I thought the movie was very moving and educational, and reminding of us how we have to evangelize, and how Our Lady of Guadalupe is for the Americas, and how she wants us all to fight for God's truth and against this disrespect for life.
The production, I think, of the production values were very good. It's just an excellent film to watch. Tim is a man full of passion. He's very professional, but this is much more than a business for him. This is his way of I think, in taking part in the new evangelization and making the message of Christ known.
I think the historical aspects of the film were very interesting. And for people who tend to see things in a historical narrative, in a historical context, I think the film can speak to that. I think the culture of the Aztecs causing blood sacrifices, basically trying to augment their quality of life at the expense of somebody else's sanctity of life by killing them and sacrificing them, is really fundamentally no different than what's going on in our modern culture with abortion, where no matter how you cut that, it always comes down to a quality of life issue for somebody to destroy the sanctity of life of somebody else who's inconvenient to that person. I don't see fundamentally that that's any different in mentality than what happened back in the 16th century with the Aztecs were doing. And I believe that someday there will be future generations that will look at our society, and they will look at what we were doing with abortion in the same way we look at what was being done by the Aztecs in their sacrifices of other human beings for their own qualities of life.
Well, I felt it was really important to include the entire history of what the Guadalupean miracle was all about. We're guilty of having Our Lady of Lourdes, Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Quito, Our Lady of Cabejo, all these ladies, and we get confused that in reality she's all the same lady. And what Our Lady of Guadalupe does is actually goes back, all the way back to the time of Mary, when she was with Luke, and Luke had the narratives, and Luke so appreciated her, he carved a statue of her. And this is all connected from Luke to Mary to Spain, Columbus, and so on and so forth into Mexico.
I knew most of the symbolism for the Aztecs, about the stars and the moon and the sun. What I learned today was the connection to Spain and how it also talked to the Spaniards. And that just makes it even more impressive to me, that it could talk to both cultures, and both cultures understood the image. I thought that was amazing.
You have to look at the Virgin Mary and the apparitions of the Virgin Mary in a holistic perspective. For instance, I've been doing research for a number of years on the two apparitions of the Virgin Mary, the one in Guadalupe, Spain, in the Extremadura, and of course the one in Mexico. And we have to, and they fed off each other. These two Guadalupe apparitions fed off each other in terms of the devotion of the conquistadors, who 99% of them from the Extremadura, and who came over here. So, and they, lo and behold, there's new Guadalupe apparition. So we have to look, and I consider myself to be an ethno-Mariologist and historical Mariologist, and we have to look for the commonalities in all the apparitions and of the Virgin Mary. And what's so wonderful about this movie, this is the first documentary, to my knowledge, that really brings up the apparition, the first phase of the Guadalupe apparitions in the Extremadura, and it's so important. They finally have that in a movie, and it has a really this movie has a holistic perspective to a holistic attitude towards Mariology.
Juan Diego was a very simple person, and even described as humble and childlike, very simple-minded. We're called to be humble and simple-minded and childlike in our faith. And trusting in God. And so Juan Diego, whose birth name, and I will be a little off on this because I haven't got the dialect quite right, but Quetzalcoatl, which translated English meant messenger eagle. He was born the messenger eagle, and I believe that there's a little bit of messenger eagle in each and every one of us. And this hopefully bringing this story, this miraculous event that occurred over 1,500 years according to our terms, and even 1,900 years if you look into the new technology that has brought new light, shed new light on the image itself. It's an incredible story, and we've talked about how storytellers were always revered, and the storyteller would carry the history forward. Well, Our Lady of Guadalupe is one of the greatest stories of all time.
I think she was clear about that when she appeared to Juan Diego, and she said to him, "I am your mother." This is what we learn from Jesus on the cross, that Mary is our mother. Mary is the mother of every Christian. And at that special time in the history of the New World, it was so important to have that message of care, of love, of hope that God sent through the appearance of his mother.
The message of Our Lady of Guadalupe was well said by the apparition of the Virgin. That is, am I not your mother? What do you have to fear if heaven is on your side and you are on heaven's side?
As with anything from historic times, they're always trying to verify authenticity. Our Lady, the tomb of Juan Diego, was not treated any less than any historical item. People wanted to know its authenticity. And since it was physically evidenced, physically seen, and it's physically still with us, it's indisputable. The whole story of Juan Diego and everything is chronicled in what's called the Nican Mapoa, which is a document that was by a man named Valeriano, who chronicled this, again, a storyteller, chronicled the history of Juan Diego. So science getting in and testing, and this wasn't a bunch of Catholics who took it and did scientific tests on it. This was Richard Koons, who was a Jewish-German scientist who did testing on the actual fibers of the tilma. So the whole science community, NASA, Kodak, all of these big names in the community verified that this was extraordinary, not made by man.
Well, the historical research that went into this movie was excellent, was superb. This is the best I've seen in any documentary on the apparition of the Virgin Mary in Mexico. I'm not a scientist. Even though I'm married to a scientist, I don't pretend to be a scientist. But I'll tell you one thing, the tilma needs some more scientific research, much more scientific research, new scientific research. And I know, having worked on the shroud for so many years, and what modern science does for the shroud, it's fantastic. I think you could apply those same techniques to the study of the Virgin Mary, and I wonder what it takes after working on the tomb of Guadalupe for since 1993. Excuse me, having worked on the tilma and tried to get testing on the tilma since 1993. How much longer, oh Lord, is it going to take? But it is absolutely essential. We can't rest on the research from years ago. Since so much can be done through computer. I know what can be done on the shroud through modern science since the age of computer. Imagine what could be done in terms of non-destructive, underline, italics, non-destructive testing of the tilma.
The colorations on the tilma are of the physical order, and there's no reason to think that we cannot characterize that, if for no other reason than proper conservation of the tilma. But also I think that by doing so, it could open doors for the secular society to be able to be more open to wanting to consider what the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe could mean in our day for them, and really for all of us.
Well, I think the church can really grow through the new evangelization movement by taking a step back and looking at the various mediums that are now available to us. Sometimes we're a little too old school, and we have this great arena now of digital technology that we can communicate. and we can create apps and feed people daily with information. The new evangelization is not so much just a buzzword, but it's to become proactive, and it's an invitation for everyone to be active in the new evangelization. You have to get your story and be able to help someone convey your story to someone else and teach people, get them interested in coming back into our churches. When we talk about the new evangelization, at least from my vantage point, it is a proactive calling, not a reactive. We need to be proactive in getting people back to the church and back more faith-filled.
Well, we're living today, in a time of great opposition to the message of Christ, to the gospel, in many ways even to the natural law itself. We can make comparisons to that time. We can make comparisons to so many times when Christianity has been persecuted, but here we are today. And of course, bloody persecution going on in some parts of the world. We should not underestimate that. Here in the West, that isn't happening yet. We hope it never does. But it is a real opposition to the gospel of hope and of truth that Christ brought us, and we still have our Blessed Mother to help us to stand strong and keep living and making that gospel known.
The culture that we have in our modern world has become very secularized, and the church finds itself having to be in that kind of a culture, and the people of that culture need to be evangelized just like the Spanish and the Aztec Indians did at their time. And I think being a messenger eagle today is to bring the gospel of Christ to the people who are involved in this humanistic, secular, non-godly, really, many times atheistic even, orientation or belief system. And that's a new challenge for the church, and I think that's the importance of being a messenger eagle today.
The messenger eagle, I think, of today is someone who takes the Holy Father's call to the new evangelization seriously, that each and every one of us, not just priests, not just religious, not just the professionals in the church, but every single baptized Catholic is called to be a messenger of the gospel, to bring Christ to others after having first embraced and met Christ ourselves.
Well, I think in order to be a messenger eagle, which is basically an evangelist, we have to ourselves be confirmed in our faith. And we have to feel it in ourselves before we go out spreading the word to other people. That's the whole thing. We have to really feel confident in our love for Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and also their love for us and their protection of us. And once we are really established in this love, we can go out and proselytize, for lack of a better word, evangelize our feelings to other people.
The Blood and the Rose is a film really for everyone, for young and old, no matter where in the world they are, because the message of Our Lady of Guadalupe, the message of the gospel, is perennial, and it's for all times, it's for all people.
I am very grateful for this opportunity. Not a lot of people get an opportunity like this. I mean, if you sit back and think about it, I have had the experience. Not a lot of people know, many people haven't been to see the tomb of Juan Diego in Mexico, but it's in a protective bank vault behind the altar, but it's in a frame over the altar. So you can see it when you're sitting in the pews, but you go back in around, there's a bank vault with a big wheel that you turn, and you go in there, and there's a little, I got to go in and I actually got to kiss the tilma through glass, but nonetheless, I was actually able to see the tilma from inches away, less than inches away, and see the coarse fiber that made this up, and to think how miraculous this this image is, the way that it's crafted. Even a little burst up by her lip gives her lip definition. And then to have been able to go into what's called Mary's bedroom in the Shrine of Guadalupe in Guadalupe, Spain, and to touch the statue that is believed to have been carved by Luke. What an amazing journey. And to be here with the first diocesan wide event in Colorado Springs has been a great privilege for me.